But of course, the work of the Commission continues. We have just concluded for the day with Mzwanele Manyi continuing with his evidence, but he is expected to be here today, and as a result, the Commission will resume much earlier than expected, than usual. Normally it starts at 10, but it will be at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. The reason, because tomorrow was set aside for the governing ANC. Perhaps to give us a bit of what is going to happen is the ANC NEC member Zizi Kodwa, who's been attending the proceedings here. Of course, he knows about what has happened to the SABC equipment, but of course, work has to continue. Zizi, you'll be here tomorrow, so can we expect you to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
No, firstly, I think on behalf of the ANC, we must condemn in the strongest possible terms the reported incident that happened earlier in the Commission's room, that an equipment of SABC was stolen. Nothing must stop this work of this Commission. It's important that whilst we must note with serious concern the fact that whilst the Commission is sitting trying to sort out the problems, but also to make sure that whatever went wrong in the recent past will restore credibility of our constitutional democracy, criminals are also looking for some space to do their criminal activity. And we hope police will act swiftly and find this criminal, who I think if one has looked at the footage, they should be able to find the alleged culprit. Tomorrow is a big day for the African National Congress. When we called for the establishment of this commission, we knew that the African National Congress, as a governing party, its name time to time will come, and those who appear in their individual capacity will also make reference to the African National Congress. We are responding to some aspects of the testimony that has been led before this commission. Firstly, by the four major banks, in terms of the meeting convened by the Secretary General at the time, Mandashe. On his capacity as a national chairperson of the ANC, he will lead a delegation tomorrow, starting at 9 o'clock, of course, after the testimony of Comrade Zizi Manyi. Leader delegation led by him, Comrade Jesse Duarte, Comrade Ino Kotongwana, and others will be here tomorrow to respond to some aspect that has been led before. Because we are committed to help this commission to achieve the objectives in terms within the terms of reference, will also come the second part of our submission will be led by the President. We don't want to be the head of the work of this commission. We want to allow all other testimony and witnesses to appear, at the end of which the President of the ANC will then lead the testimony of the ANC, because we need to explain as a governing party to the people of South Africa who gave us a mandate. What did we know? What did we not know? What did we do? What did we not do? And we must take responsibility as the ANC to explain and take the country into confidence and acknowledge where there were issues that need acknowledgement.
So is the former SG the chairperson that will be leading the delegation, right?
Tomorrow, the former Secretary General, Mandashe, will be leading a testimony and submission of the ANC.
I think the reason I'm confirming that because his name has come up a number of times in a number of people who have been giving evidence here.
His name comes in the context of his position as a former Secretary General. There were no instances where he was quoted in his individual and personal capacity. That's why he comes here leading a delegation to explain the position of for example, the meetings that his name, first time we heard about his name. He convened, the meeting was held in his capacity as a Secretary General of the ANC. We'll also explain the issues that are arising out of the ANC interface with government. How do we interface as a political party with our deployees in government, for example, the issues about some committees, whether deployment committees or not, but what is that interface? We'll explain the principle without talking about aspects of specifics that we raise here, because if we were to do that, we must come here each time when the testimony of a witness is given, so that whoever comes later, this commission and the chairperson may appreciate that as a governing party, there is a certain system within which we interface with those whom we deploy in government.
Thank you very much, Zizi.
Thank you.
There is Zizi Kodwa there, the head of the ANC presidency, and of course a member of the ANC NEC in his own right. It promises to be very interesting, Peter. The testimonies tomorrow by Mr. Manyi and of course by the African National Congress. And given that the judge will speak first and indicate to us what his thoughts are, what his feelings are regarding what people have been saying about the commission. So we are really looking forward to the testimony of tomorrow. And of course, the ANC people saying it's on trial and vehemently denying that. So this will be the opportunity really for them to state their side of the story. But of course, that is not the end of it. As you heard Zizi there saying, after that, the president of the ANC will then be the one who will come, perhaps at a much later stage, when many people would have spoken, to respond and give their global picture of what they think of the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture.
All right, Ms. White, it's the end of a work day, so a lot of people didn't have an opportunity to see what was happening inside the state capture inquiry today. Two key witnesses appearing before the stand, Phumza Maqanda, who was former head of communications at Treasury, and Mzwanele Manyi. Can you summarize what they said in the main today?
Perhaps starting with the just recent witness, Mzwanele Manyi, whose evidence really is not concluded as yet. But the issue, Peter, was around during his time when he was at the GCIS, the funding that went to the computer-linked companies. So I think what the lawyers and the commission is trying really to determine is to test his version, because remember, before he could be asked questions, he asked also to put his own statement, putting his own version. So what we are doing now is that they are trying to unpack that. And you even heard the judge really saying to Mr. Manyi when he was comparing, I think, the kind of funding that went to SABC and UH, saying, well, maybe you can't compare an SABC, which has so many radio stations and television stations, with a newspaper, just one newspaper. So what I can say is still happening at the moment, remember his evidence is not concluded yet, is that they are still trying to test some of those issues that he himself raised and those that they want clarity on. So insofar as Phumza Maqanda, the former head of the communications at Treasury, she was basically, Peter, corroborating the events really that happened when Minister Van Rooyen was appointed. I think one of the striking things that she mentioned was the nature and the manner in which one of those people who have been appointed, Mohammed Bopat, related to them. I mean, she spoke about the first meeting with him at the Union Buildings when Minister Van Rooyen was going to be sworn in. I mean, they were meeting for the first time, and then they needed to prepare a statement, but this person, according to Maqanda, was basically not interested in that. In fact, not only was that relation perhaps looking a bit difficult for Ms. Maqanda, even the phone call or even the exchange that she witnessed between the advisor and the newly appointed minister, she says it really painted a picture of people who did not seem to know each other, because Mr. Bopat asked the minister to say, I've been calling you and you've not returned my calls. And then the minister said, well, I didn't have your numbers. So you would understand in the context of why that is important in this context, because when Minister Nene had been removed from his post on December 9, he got a call from the chair of the Economic Transformation Subcommittee of the ANC, Enoch Godongwane, saying, you will get a Gupta minister who will come with his advisors. He does not even know those advisors. So when you look at that kind of exchange, it basically confirmed what had been said. So that would be perhaps the sum total of their evidences. And but Mr. Manyi, as I said, continues tomorrow, and then after that the ANC takes the stand as well.
All right, perhaps finally you talked about exchanges, and it wasn't the most friendly exchange between Advocate Maleka, who's leading evidence, and the witness on the stand, Mzwanele Manyi. It was tense at times.
It was very tense, and I think we could see as early as last week that the exchanges were not going to be nice, so to speak, because when Mr. Manyi was here, and then the commission told him that, well, so they had perhaps made a mistake, they would like him to come today. And then he was basically saying, I mean, you guys called me here, and then I'm here now, and then you are changing. And then at that point, because Mr. Maleka was saying, you know, I would want to give you an opportunity really to go through some of the questions that we'll ask you. And even at that stage, Mr. Manyi said, well, I can see you are really raring to ask me questions. So you could see that that kind of relationship in terms of the question and answer was always going to be really hot. And that's what we witnessed here today. And Peter, it continues tomorrow.
All right, and that's where we'll leave it for the time being. Mzwanele Manyi on the stand earlier on today.